How's it going, everybody? My name is Miles and this is the Make with Miles channel. Today we are going to be making this owl themed wall art for my school auction. Let's go. As I mentioned before, this shield was to raise money at my school auction. So I was first given a blank shield to work on, and I immediately knew I wanted to make mine out of wood. The first thing I did was trace the shield onto a large piece of paper, and I then made a rough sketch of the owl so I could get its general size and placement. Once I had my rough sketch, I photocopied it and glued it to a chunk of basswood. After I had cut the shape out on the bandsaw, I used a belt sander to shape a contour onto the back so it would lay flat on the curved surface of the shield. I took off more material on the bandsaw and switched over to a gouge to get closer to its final shape. After the rough shaping was out of the way, I could start shaping the ridges of the face. I drew in some guiding lines with a marker and carved out where the eyes would sit. After the carving was done, I took it to the drill press and used a Forstner bit to hog out some of the material on the back so that it would be lighter. Next, I glued the owl head to the shield and added screws from the back. The next thing I did was prime and paint the whole shield. I did this because I wasn't sure yet if I would cover the entire surface in feathers, but it turned out to be unnecessary in the end. I purchased these glass owl eyes on Etsy, which are the same size as a quarter. After I had the eyes for scale, I was able to make the beak out of walnut. I traced its shape onto the wood and started shaping it at the bandsaw. I used a rotary tool to refine the shape and finished it with a spray lacquer. It was now time for the most exciting part, cutting out hundreds of feathers. All jokes aside, this process was very tedious and time consuming, and I would recommend using scissors to cut them out rather than using a knife. The first batch of feathers was the largest, and they were made out of walnut veneer. After I'd cut them all out, I thought they needed some more detail, so I used a round punch to create tiny discs of veneer. I then split them in half and glued them to the feathers, alternating the species of wood. After they were all finished, I glued them onto the shield using super glue. Now that the first type of feathers were on, I moved to a smaller size, this time using cherry veneer. These were the first feathers which were the transition from the flat surface of the shield to the owl head, so I soaked them in warm water so they would bend easier. This process worked very well because the wetness of the feathers made the super glue kick much faster, so I didn't need to hold it very long. The further up I went, I used smaller and smaller feathers, and I always alternated the species of wood. This lends a more realistic and natural effect. Before I got too far with the feathers, I cut out the ears or the horns of the owl. These were somewhat tricky to glue on, but with some patience, I managed to get them installed. I continued gluing on pieces of walnut veneer to achieve the shape I desired. After the ears were finished, I kept gluing on more feathers. As I got closer to the eyes and beak, the feathering became more challenging. After I was finished gluing feathers around the eyes, I added some longer strips to conceal the seams on the ears. I finally glued on the beak and added some tiny feathers around it. The last thing I did was glue the glass eyes in, and this project was complete. Overall, I'm super stoked with how this project turned out, although it did take a very long time, so I don't think I'll be making another one in the near future. I want to give a huge thank you to Michael Alm. If you didn't know, Michael Alm makes these animal sculptures using wood veneer and wood shavings, and they're really what inspired me to make this shield the way I did. So if you haven't checked out Michael Alm, there's some links in the description. I highly encourage you to do so. If you liked this video, go ahead and check out some of my others. And if you want to see more of what I'm up to, hit the subscribe button and follow me on Instagram. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.